Welcome everyone. This presentation walks through the Discovery to Implementation Framework, a structured model for running large transformation programs with multiple parallel work streams. The framework addresses three common failure modes: strategic drift as delivery accelerates, integration gaps between work streams, and adoption treated as an afterthought rather than a delivery requirement. This framework is a phase-governed, sprint-executed, multi-workstream transformation model for moving from discovery to full implementation without losing strategic alignment. It is designed for large programs where several work streams must move in parallel, such as contact center transformation, infrastructure modernization, management tool transition, platform and integration change. The framework combines 5 structural elements: phases for executive alignment and decision control, sprints for iterative delivery, parallel work streams for domain execution, integration governance for convergence across streams, progressive rollout waves for safe implementation. Before explaining what the framework does, it is important to be clear about what it prevents. Strategic drift happens when programs start with executive alignment, but that alignment erodes as delivery accelerates. Work streams make local decisions, trade-offs accumulate quietly, and the original intent shifts significantly. Integration gaps occur when individual work streams perform well on their own, but the program fails to converge. Interfaces are mismatched. Foundational components are not ready when downstream work needs them, and cutover becomes a scramble. Adoption as an afterthought means change management is bolted on at the end, after design decisions that ignored user impact and operating model requirements. By then, it is too late. These problems tend to compound each other. The framework addresses all three from the start. These 7 principles govern how the framework operates in practice. These operating principles are not general guidance. They are delivery rules that shape planning, gate decisions, sequencing, risk acceptance, and release readiness across the program. Each principle must be supported by visible evidence in program reviews. Discover broadly, deliver incrementally. Learn enough early to avoid costly mistakes, but do not wait for perfect certainty before progressing. Design and build in rolling waves. Do not fully complete all analysis and design for the entire program before delivery starts. Design enough for the next increments while continuing deeper work where risk is highest. Manage at the program level, not only the team level. Workstream success does not guarantee program success. Dependencies, integration, and sequencing must be managed centrally. Validate assumptions before scale. Use prototypes, pilots, simulation, and limited deployment to prove both technical and operational fit before broad release. Adoption is part of delivery. Training, communication, readiness, support, transition, and reinforcement are part of the framework from the beginning, not added at the end. Phases overlap in a controlled way. Later phases may begin before earlier phases are fully complete, but only through an explicit partial exit decision at a gate review. Partial exits must name the specific outputs that are ready, the work still in progress, the risk accepted by proceeding, and a named owner for each remaining upstream gap. No downstream phase begins if any upstream gap is unresolved and unowned. Uncontrolled overlap is not permitted. Record decisions and trade-offs separately. The decision log records all formal decisions and approvals made during the program, including who made them, when, and on what basis. The trade-off register records major option comparisons and the reasoning behind why one path was selected over alternatives. When a gate review results in a direction being chosen, an entry is made in both the decision log records the approval and the trade-off register records the comparison that informed it. The two logs serve different readers. The decision log is an audit trail. The trade-off register is a reasoning record. The framework described governance and decision gates without specifying who runs them. The program director holds overall accountability. They own the program backlog, chair gate reviews, and resolve cross-workstream prioritization disputes. In some organizations, this role is the project authority or business leader. The integration and architecture lead is operationally the most critical role. They chair weekly dependency sessions, lead integration planning, and own the foundational enablement track. The change and adoption lead owns change management across every phase, not just training coordination, but readiness, baseline, resistance tracking, and adoption measurement. The release and cutover lead owns deployment waves, cutover execution, rollback readiness, and the kill switch decision process. They also own the formal service handoff at Gate 5. The security and compliance lead holds dual responsibility, delivering security capabilities through the workstream and independently reviewing security posture across all workstreams. In regulated environments, this dual role may require qualification. The program team should assess this before adopting the framework. The benefits hypothesis is a written statement established in Phase 1 and owned by the program director that defines what the program is expected to deliver and the evidence used to judge whether it has done so. It must include the specific outcomes the program is expected to produce, such as reduced handling time, lower error rates, or cost savings. The baseline measure for each outcome, taken from current state data, the target measure, and the time horizon in which it is expected to be reached. The minimum acceptable result that would still constitute success, the data source and measurement method for each outcome. The benefits hypothesis is not a projection or an aspiration. It is a testable statement. It is reviewed at the pilot gate to confirm that early results support the expected trajectory. If pilot data contradict the hypothesis, a corrective action plan must be defined before rollout proceeds. It is updated only through a formal gate decision, not informally during delivery. Phase 1. Discover and assess. Build a broad shared understanding of the current state, business goals, user needs, constraints, and opportunities. Evaluate available options and determine which paths are viable, valuable, and aligned to business goals. These two activities are combined because early discovery directly informs option evaluation, and separating them artificially extends the pre-designed period without adding decision-making value. Phase 2. Analyze. Test assumptions, understand root causes, map dependencies, and define the impacts deeply enough to support sound design. The analyze phase requires a more structured facilitation approach than discover and assess, because it is the point at which broad findings are converted into validated understanding, design shaping requirements, and explicit treatment of risk, dependency, and uncertainty. In this phase, we will be producing indicative or should cost estimates. Phase 3. Design. Create the future state including the release strategy, cutover plan, and kill switch plan with name decision authority and execution sequence. The design gate then confirms developed estimates, not just that the design is technically sound. Answer the following questions. What should the future state look like? How will it function end to end? How will teams build and release it safely? How will users transition into the change? Phase 4. Build and validate. Iterative delivery with a required pilot before wider rollout. The build and validate phase requires structured facilitation because it is the point at which the approved design is translated into a working solution and then tested under controlled conditions to determine whether broader implementation is justified. For higher risk changes, especially customer-facing operations, run the new solution alongside the existing one during early validation to compare outputs, routing behavior, case handling, reporting results, and operational stability. This reduces the risk of disruption before a wider release. Phase 5. Implement and stabilize. Progressive deployment through named waves, each with its own criteria, followed by hypercare and formal service handoff. Integration, governance, is the element I am most emphatic about. It is most commonly deprioritized when programs feel pressure to accelerate, and its absence causes the most expensive failures. The weekly dependency session is chaired by the integration and architecture lead. Every workstream lead attends. It must produce a written output, an updated dependency board, and an action list with owners and due dates. A session that produces only status updates has not done its job. Integration spikes are short, focused pieces of work before major handoffs. They validate whether interfaces actually behave as expected, whether data is in the shape the receiving system needs, and whether security and access requirements are met. The large-scale integration planning session happens every 8 to 12 weeks, every 8 for fast-moving programs. It is a visual exercise mapping all dependencies, aligning delivery windows, and confirming enabling capabilities will be available when needed. The foundational enablement track is a named workstream owned by the integration and architecture lead. Delays in this track are treated as program-level blockers. Every gate has a named chair, defined participants, a required written artifact, and 4 permitted outcomes. A gate that produces no documented decision has not occurred. Approve means the program proceeds. Approve with conditions means the program proceeds, but named conditions must be resolved within a defined window and reported back to the chair. Hold means the program pauses until a specific blocker is resolved, with a return date set at the time of the hold. Fail means the phase must be repeated or the initiative is stopped. The reason for being explicit about outcomes is to prevent the informal fifth outcome: the gate is held, nothing is formally decided, and teams continue as if it had passed. That is not a permitted outcome. The rebaseline gate is a special gate callable at any time when a major external change occurs. Affected workstreams pause. Unaffected workstreams continue. The decision must be made within 5 business days. This slide is the complete gate reference. Each gate has 4 pieces of information: name, chair, participants, and required artifact. Gate 3, design approved, requires full steering group sign-off. The design package, trade-off register, and kill switch plan with named decision authority are all required. If the kill switch plan does not name who makes the call and what happens in the first hour, the gate does not pass. Gate 5, stabilization complete, is the only gate where the receiving operational service owner is a required participant. There must be a named individual outside the program team formally receiving service ownership. The program does not retain service ownership after this gate. The gate decision memo is required at every gate, produced within 2 business days. It records the outcome, rationale, any conditions attached, and names of participants. This is the governance audit trail. The change management model is structured around 5 elements: awareness, desire, knowledge, ability, and reinforcement. Each maps to a question we must be able to answer affirmatively at the appropriate program stage. These are not questions asked only at the end. Awareness work starts in phase 1, resistance sensing starts in phase 1, training design starts in phase 3, not 3 weeks before go live. In discover and assess, the change in adoption lead identifies impacted groups, establishes a readiness baseline, and evaluates adoption risk as part of option assessment, comparing options not just on technical merit, but on people impact. A technically superior option that creates unmanageable disruption may not be the right choice. Adoption measures, training completion, usage rates, support demand, resistance indicators are reviewed every sprint and formally at every gate. There are 9 cross-cutting controls, each with a named owner. Unlike workstreams, the cross-cutting controls operate across all workstreams throughout the entire program. 3 are owned by the integration and architecture lead: architecture coherence, integration control, and foundational enablement. This reflects how central that role is to program level success. The security and compliance control requires a specific note. The security and compliance lead both delivers security capabilities through the workstream and independently reviews the security posture of all other workstreams through this control. In regulated environments, where the reviewer can also be the deliverer, this function must be assigned to a separate individual with formal sign-off authority. The program team should assess this before adopting the framework and document the conclusion in the decision log. The support readiness control has a specific requirement. The operational service owner must be named no later than Gate 4 and formally receive ownership at Gate 5. The program does not retain service ownership after stabilization. Measurement sits across 3 groups. Delivery measures tell you whether the program machinery is working. sprint predictability, milestone achievement, dependency resolution, issue aging, and decision turnaround time. These are operational health indicators. Business outcome measures are what the program exists to deliver. These are tracked against the benefits hypothesis from the moment we have baseline data not reported for the first time at go live. Adoption and readiness measures bridge the first two. A technically excellent solution that people do not use correctly still fails. Readiness scores, usage rates, and resistance indicators are leading indicators of whether the business outcome group will achieve its targets. All three groups are reviewed every sprint and formally at every gate. The benefits trajectory review at gate 4 is the critical checkpoint pilot data must confirm we are on track to hit projected outcomes. If not, a corrective action plan is required before wider rollout proceeds. The meeting cadence is not a calendar, it is a set of commitments about how the program operates. The weekly cross-workstream dependency session is the most operationally critical regular session. It must produce an updated dependency board and a written action list with named owners. Verbal updates are not sufficient. The large-scale integration planning session is now scheduled every 8 to 12 weeks. The previous version said 2 to 3 months, which is too loose for a fast-moving program. Gate reviews are event-driven, not calendar-driven. The gate decision memo must be produced within 2 business days. Every standing meeting must have a purpose, a chair, and an output. Programs that struggle with governance do not usually have too few meetings. They have too many meetings that produce nothing actionable. Kill switch and rollback planning is an area where programs frequently produce the form without the substance, a document with rollback criteria, and a box ticked. The framework requires 3 things, all present before gate 3 passes. First, trigger conditions. These must be specific and measurable. Not service quality deteriorates, that is too subjective. The threshold must be named. For example, error rate exceeds 5% for more than 30 minutes. Second, name decision authority. The plan must name one person by role and ideally by name with authority to activate the kill switch. Under the pressure of a live production incident, ambiguity about who makes the call creates delay, and delay in those moments is costly. Third, the execution sequence. What happens in the first hour after the decision is made? Who is notified and in what order? What system actions are taken and by whom? What is the first customer communication and who sends it? This sequence should be walkable, ideally rehearsed before the first release wave. If the design gate review receives a kill switch plan missing any of these 3 elements, it does not pass. The distinction between the decision log and the trade-off register. The decision log is an audit trail. The trade-off register is a reasoning record. The decision log records every formal decision and approval, what was decided, who decided it, when, and on what basis. It is updated within 2 business days of each decision. The trade-off register records the comparisons, the options considered, the criteria used to evaluate them, and the reasoning behind why one path was selected over the others. When the program needs to revisit a decision, or when new team members join and need to understand why something was built a certain way, the trade-off register tells the story of the reasoning, not just the outcome. At a gate review, both are updated simultaneously. The decision log records the gate outcome. The trade-off register records the comparison that led to it. They serve different readers. The decision log serves accountability. The trade-off register serves future understanding. 5 things distinguish this framework from a generic program management approach. First, integration governance is not an optional ceremony. It is a named function with a dedicated lead, weekly cadence, and a foundational enablement track running ahead of consuming work streams. Second, benefits are testable, not aspirational. The hypothesis is specific and measurable, established before any design work. If the trajectory at the pilot gate does not support the original projection, rollout does not proceed without a corrective action plan. Third, governance has real structure. Every gate has named participants, a required artifact, and 4 permitted outcomes. The informal 5th outcome, where teams carry on as if the gate pass is not permitted. Fourth, kill switch and rollback plans require trigger conditions, decision authority, and an execution sequence. The design gate does not pass without all 3. Fifth, adoption is a delivery requirement, not a support function. It starts in phase 1 and is measured every sprint. Thank you for listening. I hope you found this informative. If I get enough likes, I will deep dive into the playbook and provide more details on each phase.